Hey everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to 12-Minute Trading. My name is Doc Severson. Today is Monday, the 23rd of June. We are just chewing through the month of June again, and we had a little event over the weekend. And would you look at this? The market's up 46 points. There we go. Not everybody, the markets will do what is necessary to get everybody on the wrong side of the tape and then stick it to them. Dave, what are you seeing out there, man?
Well, proof that great minds think alike. You and I did not coordinate our t-shirts for today's session, and we showed up both with green American flag t-shirts.
There
So
we
what does
go.
that say after the weekend, right? So it all depends. It's all about the U.S. move. I think uh, was well. If you saw how it was done and everything was phenomenal, right? To be able to go fly 18 hours into somebody's airspace. They don't even know you're there, not even a shot fired at you, and complete the whole mission and everything else with really nobody knowing it, with some misdirection and stuff and everything. You gotta hand it to the United States military. Pretty impressive and pretty awesome. So the initial stuff over the weekend was, okay, great. Like now, how does Iran react to that? And that's where we were coming into Sunday's futures and things like that, and then even today. And then Iran reacted, and by all reports, they communicated through back channels ahead of time. They let Qatar know that they were going to shoot these over their airspace. They basically said, "Hey, we're going to shoot our missiles right here at this time. Please take them out so that we can say that we did something and I guess save face." Right? So markets saw that. Nothing happened. Nothing. Has come about from it. All those missiles were either shot down or did not hit anything. No casualties, no damage, nothing. So markets are like, risk on, baby. We're off. So that's what we're seeing, and it coincides with we talked about it last week. Coming to this week, we had a fully charged daily chart that's ready to run in a direction, either way. This thing is really ready to pop. And so over the next few days, we're going to see don't be surprised, 200-point move either direction on the S&P. All-time highs or at least back to testing, that 5,800-ish level, right? As of now, after today, if nothing else really transpires, wouldn't be hard to see it, go after those all-time highs from here. At that point, you're going to be in an interesting position because we'll have an exhausted daily chart you're showing on the screen, and then we're still the weekly chart's finally starting to charge back up a little bit because we've gone sideways for so long, right? But we'll have a semi-exhausted or pretty exhausted weekly chart with an exhausted daily chart. So, we may just kind of go nowhere for a while, right? We may break out, come back, and kind of hang in a big range for a little while.
Yeah, even the NDX is even more severe. If you look at the NDX, the
Hmm.
weekly chart is even in worse shape, and it does need a little bit more time. I would say I would rather not see this try to break out, or because if it does, it's going to go very slowly. However, and what you and I keep waiting for, and I thought we'd see this weekend was one step back, two steps forward. This is a
Hmm.
classic move where everybody panics and reacts to the news that's in front of their face, but the market is thinking 9 months down the road, doesn't really care about this sort of thing. Only cares about the opportunities that are out there. So again, just crazy amount of energy. The last time that we saw this amount of energy was back here, and we did get
Hmm.
that was like right before what Liberation Day. We did get an
Yeah.
attempted jailbreak to the upside. Everybody went long, and then they got taken out. So I wonder if we're going to have the same kind of thing here, where we're going to have an attempted jailbreak, and then something's going to happen, which the market has a way of making happen what it wants to see happen, and then we get the
If
eventual break
if
here.
you pull up just a daily chart over the course of the last year. So just pull up just the daily chart. You can put the Bollinger Bands on it if you got it. But this pattern plays itself out a lot, actually. And this is on the daily chart. So these things happen. These are short term. They don't happen over over a long term. Um, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days. But you can see, like, look at back in August, right? You had the rise up, right? And you walked sideways for a number of days, and then all of a sudden you had your pullback. And but that printed that, lower or higher low and let you go off to the races again. Yeah, and then you highlight it, again in November, and so like this pattern seems to play itself out, and you can kind of see where we're at, right? We came off the bottom, from where we were in April, right? So we had the little bit of a pullback to kind of that moving average level there. We've risen off of that, and now we've got kind of that perfect bull flag set up, right where we're at on the hard right edge right now. And so we've got all the energy to do that quick, puke down to like 5,800, 5,850. And that would last like a day or two, and it would just be ripping right back up to, where it was and maybe beyond. But that's all you need to really get that weekly charged up. And then that weekly can trend for, another 4, 5, 6 weeks or so. So that's what we're watching. That's what we're sitting there going, okay, we've seen this pattern before. Are we going to get that quick puke down, or does it just continue to grind higher,
Yeah,
right?
so
And so,
Dave and I are throwing it out to the universe. We want to see
no.
5,800 so we can get higher prices down the road. Probably
Mhm.
not going to happen just because of the fact that we just said it. But we'll see what happens here. We are. That would be the contrarian move because most people actually trade in the past. So many investors are still trading the moves from April and May. They got their butts kicked, and they're still very fearful right now. They're looking over their shoulder at any red candle. And we've seen this happen again and again and again over the years where it's just, once you put in a bottom like that, the market has no memory. It's only forward looking. And it's already
Mhm.
told us what it thinks about this. Now, I mean, of course, anything can happen. You never know what's going to happen, out of the blue, just like 2020 or, some of the moves that we had in 2008. Um, what's up, Doc? There we go.
What's up,
Yeah,
Doc?
what's up, Doc?
Yeah.
Um, so I never want to be in a position where we're predicting exactly what's going to happen in the future because we don't know. But what we can do is we can say, yeah, this kind of looks like the same thing because the market's got a personality to it because it's crowd psychology, and crowds tend to operate in the same manner again and again and again. And that is what's predictable about crowds. It's more predictable when they're in fear. And that's why I always think that bottoms are easier to call than tops. Tops are impossible to call. We're never going to be able to call a top. And the bears are always going to be way, way, way too early, and they will get ground into dust before they finally will capitulate, and that's right near where it finally will drop. We've seen it before so many times, but yeah, like right now, the classic contrarian sign would be a quick, just a rotten like 200-point day to the downside that like a day or so later, all of a sudden everybody sits around and goes,
Powell does speak this week. He would be I guess, maybe a catalyst.
can you imagine Powell? Yeah, Powell tomorrow morning is talking in the House Financial Services Committee. And can you imagine if he just went off? Like, just became unhinged all of a sudden. I don't think, I've seen it before. Ben Bernanke, when he came in front of the House the first time, he was old shaky Ben. I don't know if you guys remember this, but Ben, when Ben would get nervous, his voice would start quaking all over the place, and he'd start really halting, and it was scary to watch sometimes because this was here's the guy that's in charge of the steering wheel for for interest rates and everything, and he'd start getting nervous in front of Congress. They generally treated him pretty well, but. Yeah, I remember seeing, and this goes back to maybe 2006, 2007. But I remember watching the market sell off when he was talking in
Yeah,
front
he's
of
like
Congress.
sweating, and everything in front of everybody, and just he's not giving off a good look. Let's
But
put it that way,
Powell
or
Powell
no
just
confidence.
Powell doesn't care though. Powell just
Yeah.
he's like he just doesn't care anymore. He's like, and it's interesting because we've spent the last 20 years plus glued to every word that the Fed has ever said. because the Fed has, it's the parable: never fight the Fed, don't fight the Fed. Those who fight the Fed will, get run steamrolled. But I'm really starting to wonder if the Fed is distancing themselves from the fray. And they're just in the back room, behind the green curtain, just working the controls, and just like, all I care about is the interest rates and inflation. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is going on. And so I'm seeing a
Mhm.
distancing between the Fed and between what's happening on a day-to-day basis. What
Well, and
what
there's
what do you
starting
think?
to be you watch the other members of the board because
Yeah.
they're like the surrogates that will start to float things. And so now we've had in the last since the end of last week and now even today we've had two Fed board members come out and say that they're open to maybe a rate cut in July if things look like they're tame for inflation and stuff, right? So like that's starting to come out. That's one of the things that boosted things a little bit at the end of last week for a little bit and stuff. So that message is starting to be floated, and so we'll see if that turns into anything. But that's the first I've seen that change in that messaging from the board out there. And maybe some of them are jockeying for a position because they know Powell's out and Trump gets to appoint whoever. So, whoever is most dovish about cutting rates may get that position, right? So there could be some of that, but yeah, we're seeing a little bit of that change in messaging now, which is also good for the markets, honestly. The interesting thing when we're in a time like where we're at too is a lot of times like when the market gets everything that it wants is when it sells off too. So not saying it will, but a lot of times like everything's so like priced in and everything. So like once everything pans out, there's like what's the reason to buy? Like it's already priced in, it's already there. So it's a lot of taking profits and stuff at that point
Yeah.
you see, and that
Well,
can cause that
unless
quick trip
inflation
down.
goes away, there's no choice but to buy, because you're never going to get any yield through fixed instruments or anything like that.
That's
So
right.
I mean, this has been the case for a
Hmm.
long time now, especially during the ZERP years. But even at 4.5%, the only way you're going to get a reasonable yield is to go back into risk assets. Nobody has a choice. It was like the negative interest rates where you actually got punished for keeping money in the bank. Like it's going to be the opportunity cost right now of not using velocity in your money is staggering. So little things like this, like we're seeing gold setting up. I mean, this is a
Hmm.
classic ascending triangle. You know, like and generally what you're going to look for on these things is this delta P here, change in price. The open end of the triangle sets the measured move to the upside. So extrapolate this distance. And like again, look for the failed breakouts, look for the failed sell-offs to start this potential move. So that is one for GLT. Let me go out to the fractals on this one. And by the way, guys, while I'm doing this, if there's anything you want us to take a look at, please let us know. Now, look where gold has gotten itself into, because massive
Hmm.
monthly trend, which is coming out of exhaustion, and look at the weekly energy that's available for this thing, which is huge. And the daily chart's a little bit, no, but nobody cares about the daily chart when you have a weekly chart, which
Weekly
is
chart
this
that
much
that charged
energy.
up.
So a lot
Yeah.
of times, what will happen is you'll see kind of a fake move to the downside, and that is what triggers this amount of energy to unload to the upside. Because I mean, the last time that we had something like this was back here. We were into monthly exhaustion, which we got into recently, but it's only 2 months, 2 months to the downside, and it was just enough to power the next trend. So this thing is right now, gold is fairly unstoppable at this point, and this has gone well above. If you look at this thing, Jesus goes all the way back here. Let's see if I can squeeze this together. Okay, this is. I love these charts. This is Wow, we're getting some. Are you hearing that? I don't know where that audio is coming from.
There you go. That sounds better.
Okay. Here's the cup with handle pattern, which took from this is 2011 all the way till the breakout in 2024, and it's already gone well above target for this. So the very last part of this will be the strongest gains, and then we're going to have a hairy back to it. So be careful of that. Be careful of that.
Check out silver and see how silver is looking, because it still has not caught up.
No, and
Look at the SLV.
it's pretty common that silver is going to be like if you think about it, this is the rounded cup pattern for silver, and it's still working on getting up to 50. So I'm still generally holding silver fairly long right now, and that's the hardest part about trading silver is knowing when to sell the calls. Sometimes it's better. Like I have one account where I just don't even bother doing covered calls. I just leave it alone. Because every time I write calls against it, it tends to run them over. And then I have to cover them at cost and then do it again. And it's just, unless you're going to be really, really dedicated to finding overbought conditions for this, I would stay away from it right now because silver is on a march. But yeah, like here's a weekly exhaustion. So we should see this fall in line here for a little bit at the very least, maybe another consolidation like this. And this may retest the breakout and do the same thing here. So silver's good. What is everybody else looking at?
Might as well pull up Bitcoin.
The 10-year note. I got the wrong ticker on that.
We've just done a trade on it here a little bit. You can pull up the IBIT. We can kind of talk about where that's going because I think there's a good opportunity in Bitcoin coming up.
This is a 12-minute chart so you can see that we had our little swoon, and this was Monday morning, and it's already recovered from there in the last 2 hours. So nice move here. Yeah, maybe I don't know where this feedback is coming from today. I have no idea. So anyway, it's just, this is a weekly bull flag. If we pull this back, this is a weekly bull flag. This is a perfect little flag pattern that's setting up nicely here. Right in line.
100, it keeps dancing with 100K, and it keeps kind of holding that. Even when it dips below, it's been able to kind of hold that. So that looks like around there is the staging point for the support for the next leg higher in this thing.
Here are the support levels for Bitcoin. Right now, the major point of control is at 96,000. So we tend to put emphasis on 100,000 because we think it's important to us. But the market right now is showing that 96,000 is the most important level. So there is a minor node up here at 104. So minor node at 104, which it's trying to get back inside of today. But this is so controlled, this is so linear compared to what we went through a couple of years ago, where the last time we got up to these highs, we went on to a high, it just absolutely cratered right off of the highs. So it got destroyed. It went from 68 down to 41 in the space of a couple of weeks. And as we got into 2022, and obviously we're looking at raising rates and things like that, it was and then here was the FTX debacle was back over here. So this looks completely different. This is why we're more bullish on IBIT right now and using IBIT. Now IBIT's not going to have all of the history here, but it generally trades very nicely in cooperation with Bitcoin itself, spot. So Well, that's what we're looking at this week, guys. We're
The
looking, we keep looking for the pullback, which never comes, and that may be the market's way of saying that it just doesn't care anymore.
one to pull up to right now is Carvana, or CVNA.
CVNA.
I love when stocks get hammered and then start to bounce and then selling into that. So we did a trade on this a week or so ago when I saw this, but something to put on your watch list, guys. We'll use it as kind of a teaching thing for you as well to look for these things. But man, I'll tell you, this stock is one that is CVNA is one that really, really does move. And you can see we were, upwards of three, 50-ish in that range. And we pulled all the way back and undercut 300. And so you could see what that did. See how that energy kind of burned itself out to the downside on the daily chart, right? And it's a great example of like what we're seeing, what we're talking about now. See how the weekly energy was pretty exhausted? And then look, there's that like 1 week wonder in there, that
Yep.
on the weekly chart that is really the move of the daily chart that you saw to the downside to burn itself out. So you get an exhausted daily chart. You've got a weekly chart that's now charging itself back up and it's come back, up some. So it came all the way down to like, right, 290 or so, and then it's bounced back up to 318. It probably will hover in this area for a little bit, but find support. And this is just a good, almost a bull flag type thing too on this, but
Is this stock
it's
really gone
printing.
from 355 up to 355? Is that serious?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's a hell of a move.
Insane. That's what I said. It's insane. But anytime I see this thing drop 60, 70 points and burn the energies out and stuff like that, I sell deep into it. So we sold down, 180-ish on this thing when it came down there, right? And already profiting on it and that sort of thing. But this is just like one of those really opportunistic stocks that tends to have these moves like that. So I just was sharing it, put it on your watch list, something to look for when this stock pulls back, in that way. It's a good time to take advantage, sell deep out of the money, put spreads, things like that, because it's a mover. It's definitely a mover. And another one right now that's been moving a lot like that is CrowdStrike too. So CRWD, it's rocking higher as well too, and that's another one to look at for the same thing. Um, Remember, be fearful when others are greedy, greedy when others are fearful. So my favorite setup are just really big pullbacks, right? So that one
In
back there in
in an
April was
uptrend,
perfect.
in an
Yeah, in an
uptrend.
uptrend.
Right,
Great,
and
great point.
this
Yeah,
is
in an
this is
uptrend.
why we always have to talk about this because we get
Hmm.
folks that are they're looking like this, and you see the price doing something like this, and they'll say, "Hey doc, should I get involved in this one because it's in an uptrend?" And I'm like, "An uptrend on what time frame?" And it ends up
Right.
being like on a daily time frame, but this is still in a wicked monthly downtrend, and the gravity is still the path of least resistance is still to the downside. So what we like to do is we like to use this is what the moving averages are for. Just stay,
Hmm.
to identify which way is the current going in the stream that you want to paddle. I like to paddle downstream, and so that's why we're looking for stocks that are above the 200-day moving average, generally and trending up. And then, like Dave says, look for that big pullback. And those pullbacks are usually coming down to the lower Bollinger Band and also
Hmm.
showing daily exhaustion. So there's there's times like that where people are freaked out, where they sit to the sideline, and this is where we get on board. This is where we get on board. All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Let us know. We need to wrap up here in a couple of minutes, but if there's anybody else that's online that has any questions or wants to look at anything, please let us know. Or if you're watching
and
this on a replay, email us for next week. So
And
look
Doc,
for
thanks for, I take it for granted, but thanks for pointing that out about the uptrend because it is a critical thing, right? You don't want to ever, you don't want to ever try to hope something can spontaneously recover from mediocrity, right? You wanted to see it, you want to, use success and let it keep going, right? So that's what you're, the uptrend is success. It has a little bit of a pullback in the midst of that success. That's normal. Take advantage, let it keep going. So great point.
This is one that came up this morning in my live trading room. Somebody was asking about one of our members was asking about Walmart and where I would sell puts on Walmart for this. And the first thing I look at is the trend. And I say, I like the trend. So you can be as aggressive as you want to on Walmart because it's generally at this point going to reward you. And the other thing that we like is the potential for this to trend. And, if you look at this, this has actually been in a range now. When you climb a mountain, you're gonna sprint up the mountain as fast and as far as you can, but then you're gonna hit a point at some point where you're gonna have a stitch in your side, and you're gonna want to sit down and grab a sandwich or something like that. Well, now it's ready to go. It's been sitting on a boulder for the last year, and it looks like it's ready to go. And the trend certainly does support that. And we've had a nice day already in that. So, by the way, we decided the best way to do this one was actually a buy right. Like in a case like this where you have such a bullish chart, you can sell puts on it, but you're not going to make much money. So you got to get some capital gains when you've got a good setup like this one, like Walmart. Okay. All right. Well, guys, nothing else seen. Thanks for joining us here today. So from Dave and myself, we thank you guys for joining us here. And we've definitely
What's the next few days?
Definitely seen the market have a little bit of a turn. I think we're still in for a little bit of fun while we get into the end of this quarter. And then, don't forget, we got the end of the quarter coming up. And so there's window dressing
Monday
coming up. Yeah, boy, is it. It's the week after Monday.
Or it's next Monday.
So,
a week from today.
Week from today is the end of the quarter. So
yep.
So
that daily energy is going to come into play. So that today might be the beginning or tomorrow, but watch that over the next few days. If you follow us or you have if you're a student that has the energy indicator, it's at 70 I think on the SPX right now, or real close to 70. If that thing starts to dip down and gets below 60, that pretty much can confirm your daily chart trend, whichever way that's going. So just watch that and you'll have a pretty good idea. So
all right, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
All righty.